So I got this comment on one of my epidural free videos that I did here on TikTok, and I feel like I should address it with a longer form of video. So starting off, I just really have to credit my mom for my mindset concerning birth and labor and parenting, mothering, and all of that stuff. Because if you didn't know, I am one of 10. So my parents, they have 10 children, and I'm one of the oldest. So I've seen my mom pregnant, multiple times. I've seen her give birth, even one time. So she just really never talked about birth or childbirth in a negative way. Like, she always was pretty much positive about it, and just really instilled in me that it's a natural thing, that this is what women's bodies do, and that childbirth isn't something that you should fear, or really, she didn't really like talk about the pain of childbirth and things like that. So I just really credit her with I feel like mindset concerning birth and everything like that. And so, like, I always knew I wanted to be a mom. I always knew I wanted to have kids. And even before I became a mom and got pregnant, I was like, if I ever give birth, I want to do it without an epidural. So it really just wasn't a thought of me giving birth with one. So I never really planned on it. Now, fast forward to my first birth, and I had severe preeclampsia, and I had to give birth suddenly at 33 weeks pregnant. So I was induced. I was in labor for about 2 to 3 days before, we all realized that it wasn't really working, and that I was getting sicker, my baby was getting sicker, and then I had to have an emergency cesarean. So for my C-section at that time, I had a spinal. And of course, for your C-section, you could have a spinal or you could have an epidural placed. And my anesthesiologist chose the spinal. So that was a really good experience for me. But going forward, I knew that, if I had more children after that, or, got pregnant after that, I decided that, as much as possible, I wanted to do it as naturally as possible. Like, I did not enjoy that experience of, being numbed from the waist down, and it just wasn't something that I would want to experience again, given the opportunity or the choice. So for my next birth, it was my first VBAC birth. I labored without an epidural, and I never was one of those people that felt like birth should be feared, or that that the pain of childbirth is something that I need to be saved from. Like I said, I like to do things as naturally, as holistically as possible. I'm not one of those people that like medicine. I don't like needles. I don't like having to take things or being out of control of my body. And so that's one of the biggest reasons why I chose not to have an epidural. I wanted to feel everything. Like, I wanted to feel what it felt like to have contractions. I wanted to feel what it felt like for my baby to be moving down. I wanted to feel what it felt like to be able to push a baby out. I didn't want those feelings to be numbed in any kind of way. And then also another reason why I chose not to have an epidural is I didn't want my movement to be restricted. So if I wanted to get out of the bed, and walk around, I could. If I wanted to bounce on an exercise ball, I could. If I wanted to go use the bathroom by myself freely, I could. And so those are some of the things that you can't do, if you have an epidural, or you can't do as easily. So if you have an epidural placed, and you have good nurses or good support people, they'll turn you to different positions and things like that. But if you don't, then you're pretty much stuck in a bed the whole entire time, laboring on your back. And I just knew that that wasn't for me. Like, that's not something that I wanted to do. And it's not conducive for birth or for labor, because we are meant to, move around in labor. We're meant to be upright as much as possible. We're meant to be able to change our positions to help facilitate the baby. Like, a lot of times you get stuck in dilation or stuck in a certain position, the baby can't move to the optimal position that they need to be in to come down. So that just was not something that, I wanted to experience. And again, for my C-section, it's not something that I enjoyed, not being in control of my body or of my movement. So that is another reason why I decided not to have an epidural for my birth. And then, I don't know if a lot of people know this going into it, but when you have an epidural, you have to also have a catheter placed so that, it collects your pee and all of that while you are bedbound. And so again, that's not something that I like about the process either. And then, you know, if you plan on getting an epidural, or you're in, you know, that's part of your birth plan, that's what you anticipate doing going into labor, you may run into situations where you can't get one, like in a timely fashion. So say the anesthesiologist is not in the hospital and you have to wait for them to arrive, then you're waiting, you know, in excruciating pain or agonizing pain because you never prepared yourself to labor without one. Or if your anesthesiologist is stuck in a cesarean birth or stuck in a C-section and they can't get to you. Or, you know, if you get an epidural placed and it only works on one side of your body and then not the other side of your body. I've heard women say that. Or, you know, if they had to stick you multiple times to get it to work, or if it just flat out doesn't work at all. And then, you know, you went into labor hoping that you would get this pain relief and then it doesn't come, or you get it and then the next thing you know, you still have to push before it even kicks in. That is another thing also. So I just never wanted to be in a position where I felt like I needed to have it, or that, you know, I got it and then it didn't work. Or, you know, there are certain, you know, side effects or certain things that can happen if you do have an epidural. So if you're one of those people who have like naturally low blood pressure, getting an epidural could lower your blood pressure to dangerous rates. And then, you know, then of course that affects you, it affects your baby. And then usually that can lead to a cesarean birth as well. Also, you may have a spinal headache from your epidural, which a lot of times that's hard to diagnose. It's hard to treat, you know, so you may be dealing with that for days before they figure out what that is. And then, you know, you're moving around and you feel like really faint, or you feel like lightheaded, or you just feel like this throbbing headache whenever you try to sit up. And then in order for them to fix that, then they have to give you a blood patch. And it's just, I didn't want to deal with the repercussions of one going wrong. And then I have read so many stories or heard from so many women who really feel as though getting an epidural led to their cesareans. And I just knew, especially going into my first VBAC, that as much as possible, the vaginal birth was my goal. So any way that I could achieve that, or anything I could do or not do to make sure that I did have my vaginal birth, I wanted to do that. So I didn't want anything to come in the way of me being able to have a VBAC. And of course I was successful. And for all of my births, even in the ones that ended in a cesarean, I labored the whole entire time without an epidural, without any pain medication, and of course pushed them out without one as well. And for me, just being able to get up and move around like post-birth immediately is one of the best parts of giving birth without an epidural, because like I just felt like so good afterwards. Like I felt like I could run a race. Like I felt really good in my body once my babies were pushed out. And, you know, even though I did tear for all of my vaginal births, like I still felt good. I didn't have to wait for an epidural to wear off. I could get up and use the bathroom immediately. I could get in a bed. I could get my babies myself. Like they didn't have to be brought to me. So all of those things went into, you know, my decision of not having an epidural. But I just want to say, like, if you got one, if you plan on getting one, like, more power to you. Like this, it does not take away from you at all. Birth is hard. Anyway, you look at it, any way that you do it, whether it's a vaginal birth, whether it's a C-section, whether it's a VBAC, whatever, epidural, not epidural, like it's hard and it hurts for the most part. A lot of it hurts. So I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat that. And if that's in your birth plan and that's what you want to do, then of course, you know, that's great. But for me, it's just not something that I wanted to experience. And then as far as the last part of this reply about the trophy, I give myself a trophy because yes, I did that. I did all of my births without an epidural, and I'm proud of that, and I have every right to be. So, you know, that is all I have to say about that. And if you are trying to have an epidural free birth, I have other TikToks here to help you with that, and I have my YouTube channel Shades of Sage where you can check that out as well. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next post.